You know, ever since I saw the first gameplay trailer for Rage 2, I felt pretty confident that it would be a fun game. It's right up my alley. I love popping crackers in the face in a fast-paced FPS game with slick movement and visceral combat. But then all of these reviews came out claiming that the game is just aveRAGE and that Far Cry New Dawn is a better game, which is positively bonkers. And while there is merit to what some of these critics are saying, at the end of the day, I was still right. This game is fun. But I'm always right, baby, always. I am your favorite little boy in the whole wide world. Ren with 2 N's, the god of video games.
Yeah. You can be the god of video games.
I am. I think
you
I already,
are.
yeah.
You're definitely the god of video games.
Thank you so much. And while Rage 2 does have its issues, which, don't worry, we will dive into them, it's still such a blast. The mobility feels great. I mean, what other first-person shooter allows you to sprint, slide, double jump, dash, and then ground pound, eviscerating all of the enemies dumb enough to be near your fist, all in one fluid, seamless motion? It's got an excellent gameplay loop as well. Each enemy you kill drops these little blue vials called Feltrite, and picking up Feltrite replenishes your health and allows you to purchase upgrades for your weapons and abilities, so it's a very valuable resource. However, if you chain your kills together quickly enough, you build up a multiplier, and the higher your multiplier, the more Feltrite enemies drop when they die. This is a fantastic system, since it rewards aggressive play and encourages you to stay in the heat of battle. I really love waltzing into an enemy camp, running into the center of 15 bandits, and killing all of them one by one, while getting shot at from all angles, dodging rockets, dodging grenades, tossing wing sticks, slapping them with a melee, blasting them with a shotgun. Meanwhile, I'm just barely scraping by with a little bit of health. Outwitting and outmaneuvering each enemy one by one. Early on, this game makes you feel like a badass. You are powerful, but not too powerful, because if you goof around enough, the enemies will kill you pretty quickly. Well, they do on hard mode at least, which, you know, that's what I played on. I don't know about you. But each fight has a really nice blend of challenge and empowerment. It keeps you on your toes. You're constantly reacting to new enemies, and you're constantly cycling through which ability you should use next to stay alive or keep your multiplier going. And if you really want to, playing passively is still a somewhat viable option, if that suits your playstyle better. And there are very few areas where you actually can use a somewhat stealthy approach, but I don't think that this game was made with stealth in mind, which I think is actually a positive, because I feel like stealth mechanics are so played out at this point. I'm really getting sick of sneaking. But with that being said, I do wish the AI here was a bit more intelligent. It's not particularly bad here, but it's also not all that great. The AI is just kind of right in the middle. The enemies mostly just rush you, they never try to flank you or outwit you, or anything special like that. They typically just try to outnumber you. Still though, the AI here is way better than those doofuses in Far Cry. Artificial intelligence? More like Alzheimer's incompetence, am I right? Rage 2 has also got some creative weapons, like a revolver that, after you've emptied your clip into an enemy, you can ignite those bullets with a snap of your fingers, turning your enemies into dust, like General Zod in Avengers Unlimited War. Or you can use a gravity dart gun that after you've shot a bunch of needles into an enemy with it, you aim at any particular spot, hit the left trigger, and your enemy will be flung into wherever you're aiming. This gun kinda reminds me of the grapple from Just Cause, and wouldn't you know it, part of this game was made by those same developers. And I can't express how much I appreciate the fact that this game has an FOV slider on console. Far Cry New Dawn had such a terrible FOV, it just felt like I was constantly looking into a magnifying glass. Rage 2 also has some pretty interesting perks and upgrades. Really neat upgrades too, like being able to knock an enemy's grenade back by meleeing it out of the air, or the ability to double sprint, which isn't something I ever thought I wanted. There's also cool passive abilities, like being able to move 50% faster while aiming down sights and crouching. I feel like this is a good example of how to do upgrades correctly in an open world game, because Rage 2's abilities enhance the game's mechanics by making it more fun or giving you more things to use, rather than just making the game more easy like in Far Cry's case. And those abilities I just listed, that's the tip of the iceberg, baby. I could go on all day because there are so many upgrades and abilities. So just so you can grasp the full picture here, there are 64 character upgrades, 68 ability upgrades, and 9 vehicle upgrades. And that's not even counting the augmentations you can purchase to make yourself even more powerful, or the weapon upgrades you can unlock as well for each individual weapon. While having this many perks is pretty cool, it's also incredibly overwhelming. And I can understand where some people might see that as a bad thing, but I see it as a good thing, because it allows you to really sort of hone your playstyle and maybe experiment a little bit, get a little creative with it, you know? But still, with that being said, some of these abilities will probably fall to the wayside for most players, since they'll most likely just wind up using whatever is most efficient. And I really can't fault anybody for that. I'm the same exact way. Because despite having a slew of awesome weapons and abilities to choose from, I just kinda found myself using the shotgun most of the time, since it's extremely powerful, especially after you upgrade it, and since your character is so damn mobile, it's pretty easy to dash into an enemy's face and blast their Kurt Cobrains all over the walls. Don't get me wrong, it was fun for a while. The shotgun feels great, but using the shotty got old. And swapping to a different weapon just wasn't getting the job done as quickly, so I didn't feel quite as efficient. I felt kinda nerfed. And unfortunately, this is where the negatives start to come into play, because reusing the same weapon and abilities got pretty stale after a while. But I do think that this issue has a relatively easy fix, which maybe they can implement for Rage 3, who knows. But that fix is to get even more bullet-stormy with this game. I think Rage 2 would have benefited from having missions or side activities that encourage you to use specific weapons or abilities. Like, hey, maybe when you clear out this bandit camp, if you get 10 shatter kills, you'll get an extra $100 upon completion. I mean, hell, it doesn't even need to be mission objectives. A challenges tab would work just as well, with little challenges like launch an enemy 50 meters into the air with the gravity dart gun, or turn 3 enemies into SpaghettiOs with 1 rocket launcher shot. And upon completion, each challenge might unlock some project points, which allow you to purchase upgrades. I think that's a pretty good idea. It incentivizes and rewards the player for getting creative and venturing outside of their comfort zone. And that's worked with other games in the past too. However, in Rage 2's case, it would slightly add on to one of this game's other issues, which is its awful menu. The UI here is absolutely terrible. Not only are there 7 tabs you have to individually scroll through one by one to get to whatever tab you want to get to, but some of them almost always take a few seconds to load, which doesn't seem like a big deal at first. But since you're constantly opening up the menu once every couple of minutes to apply new upgrades to your character, since this game hands out upgrade points like crazy, but it kinda has to since there's 141 upgrades in this game to unlock and scroll through, you wind up spending a lot of time in this menu. So when it chugs every single time you scroll through a tab, it gets annoying. Days Gone got a whole lot wrong, but one thing it absolutely nailed was its menu. The UI there was so sleek and intuitive. It's honestly one of the best open world menus I've ever used. And I can't believe more people aren't talking about it, since that's pretty much the only thing that game did well. But getting back on track, in Rage 2, there's also no music in the menu screen, which makes it feel really empty. And again, that might sound like a nitpick, but having background menu music is pretty important, especially in a game like this, where you do spend so much time in the menu. When you pull up that upgrade tab, you want a nice, soft, ambient track playing in the background that either enhances that constant little buzz of progression that the game provides, or is nice and relaxing and provides a little break from the chaos. Matter of fact, I can't think of a single open world game that doesn't have some sort of music or sound effects playing in the background of its menu. But I'm sure you guys can, so feel free to sound off in the comments and let me know. I also hate that you can't remove side activities that you've completed off of the map. You can't fast travel to any of these, so they serve no purpose other than to clog up the screen. And the side activities here, they get pretty old pretty quick. Now granted, they are fun at first, especially the convoy missions, which are a neat little layered fight. So you start off by destroying all the motorcycles in the back, and after that you gotta take out the smaller cars that drop these electricity fields that slow you down. Once they're done for, then you gotta use your EMP to disable the shields of the bigger cars, so that you can destroy them. Then after that, you gotta take down the giant vehicle by exposing its weak points with another EMP blast and blowing those up, all while maintaining high speeds. It's really fun. It's a lot like that awesome post-apocalyptic action movie with all the big cars and explosions. You know the one, Mortal Engines. Peter Jackson's crowning achievement, but this convoy activity is only fun the first time. There are, 15 convoy missions to complete, maybe even more, and all of them are practically the same exact fight. And it's still pretty fun the second time you do it, but by the third time, it's just business as usual, and all of the glamour has worn off, especially when you know that this is all there is. And that's really how all of the side activities feel. Really fun the first couple of times, but then the missions never do anything unique or different as the game progresses. They hardly have any variety to them. Side activities usually just boil down to clearing out all the goons in an area, and you're done. And sometimes after you kill all the goons, you gotta turn a valve. Sometimes you just have to destroy gas tanks as well as killing all the goons, and sometimes you gotta shoot mutant pods off the wall in order to despawn the enemies. Sometimes you gotta do a horde mode type thing. You get the point. There's also side bosses you can kill, but all it is the same exact boss fight each and every time. These fights always play out the same exact way. And once you get the rocket launcher, it turns each of these encounters into an absolute cakewalk. And at this point you're probably thinking, hey Ren, you forgot about the turret side missions. And you're right, I did forget about them, and you should too, because that's exactly what they are. Forgettable. And speaking of forgettable, the main story missions are pretty standard as well. Just your average tight corridors with enemies popping out, button pressing, switch flipping, and recycled boss fights. Seriously, you fight this big armored mutant like 4 times during the main campaign? It's the same exact fight each time. And apart from the final level, I genuinely cannot remember any given story mission. There's just nothing noteworthy about any of them. There's almost nothing to say. Same goes for the story itself. Actually, you know what? I'm not really too qualified to speak on the story. Since I did skip about 95% of all the cutscenes, I just wasn't interested at all. The presentation was awful. There were these character bios that would pop up out of nowhere.
It's been too long since I played host to one of your kind.
Dr. Anton Kvasir.
And the dialogue is some of the worst you could ever even fathom. We're talking Life is Strange levels of writing here.
I am Garcia the Gregarious, trader and traveler, merchant of fine merchandise?
I may be Walker. Are we really speaking like this?
And the driving is pretty bad too. I mean, it's kind of okay when you're driving the Phoenix. It's not terrible here, but even then, at its best, it still feels really floaty and imprecise. And you'll want to stick to using the Phoenix since the other vehicles handle so much worse. The motorcycle especially, which seems to have a mind of its own. When it's difficult to drive a vehicle in a straight line and you're completely sober, there's a problem. Plus, the world itself really just doesn't feel alive. It doesn't do what you've come to expect from other open world games. The NPCs aren't going about their lives or doing anything at all. They just hang out and lift weights incorrectly for all of eternity. There's no sense of atmosphere. It's not teeming with random wildlife. Unless you count these 2D birds buzzing around in 240p, there's just no dynamism to it. The world feels pretty barren. All you get are these same 3 cars that pass you by all the time, and the occasional faction fight. And lastly, this game is just kinda janky. I mean, it's nowhere near the level of Far Cry 5 or anything like that, but it is still pretty janky.
Agar, I got the Feltrite Fission Core.
So we can finally get the Predator tank up and running.
Okay. Enemies will randomly pop in from time to time. I had several play sessions where my wing stick just wouldn't appear on screen after I'd thrown it. There was this one time where I was just trying to fly to a mission, minding my own business, and for some reason I got randomly teleported into the town near me. No clue why or how, it just happened. Or there was this other time where I got my $500 tank, which is a lot of money in this game, stuck in this ditch for 2 minutes. But I was also not able to get out of the tank since all the wheels weren't flat on the ground and the prompt to get out wouldn't show up. And then there was that one time where the game crashed. But hey, in today's day and age, one crash over 20 hours of play is not too bad. Still inexcusable, but it could have been worse. You know, this is one of those situations where I can't help but feel inclined to agree with a majority of the critical consensus. Because if I had to give it a score, I'd say this game is, at best, just a 7 out of 10. Yes, it has incredibly fun gameplay with awesome abilities. Yes, its sense of progression is very rewarding. But there's far more to this game than just those two elements. You gotta look at the entire package, which also contains a piss-poor story with even worse presentation and dialogue, bad, floaty driving, a clunky user interface, stagnant mission design, and a lack of polish. This game is a textbook 7 out of 10. It could possibly even drop down to a 6 out of 10 as time goes by. But with that being said, I still got everything I was hoping for out of Rage 2. I had so much fun with this. I played it for 2 days straight and I could barely put it down because the gameplay and progression is that good. And honestly, I'd love to give it a higher score. I really would, but I'm just trying to be fair here. It simply just doesn't deserve one. But you know what? A 7 out of 10 is not bad by any stretch. That's a 70% right there. That's a C-, baby. If I came home with a C on my report card, that meant my daddy was gonna keep his belt on, and I could go another full semester without enduring his painful, savage abuse. And I'm literally still terrified of my father to this day. Because if I came home with a D, or God forbid an F, he would take off his belt and force me to shave his pubes again. But this game nails what every game needs to nail, which is the gameplay. It's just too bad that it kinda stagnates after a bit. But I did have a lot of fun, and I would recommend that you try this game out at some point. It's definitely worth getting on sale, or maybe a rental, but I was lucky enough to get this game for free since the boys over at Green Man Gaming were nice enough to gift me a PC code. Matter of fact, I'm actually affiliated with those guys now, so that means if you click my affiliate link in the description, you can get some pretty good deals on new video games for the PC and PS4. Even Rage 2 is 16% off or something like that. But what's cool about this is, if you purchase any games while using my affiliate link, I will get a small percentage of that sale. A nice crisp couple of bucks. So you'd actually be supporting the publisher and my channel at the same time. It's also worth noting that I was given full permission to speak about whatever games they give me however I like, whether I hate the games or love them, which is important to me. I would never take a deal where I weren't able to fully voice my thoughts about a game. But with that being said, only buy a game from there if you really want that game. Don't buy anything just to support me or anything like that. Anyway, make sure to go follow me on Twitter for little mini reviews on games that I won't be making videos on. And go check me out on Twitch. I have a ton of fun over there. And you know, maybe consider becoming a Patreon. We're almost halfway to my first Patreon goal, which will involve me getting drunk once a month and reacting to my old content, which, trust me, that's something you want to see. Anyway, that's all I got for this video, guys. I got some fun things cooking up for this channel, so stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.